the organisation yet. And also you have the threat from the air. Gaddafi always has at his disposal bombers, and he has helicopter gunships. Now, if they come into action, as we've seen in previous conflicts, for example, Iraq, that can make the difference between winning and losing. So, you know, lots of questions here. Strategy is difficult. Getting accurate information is difficult. But I think you're right. We're heading for something that was not expected. That's more protracted sort of conflict here.
Just a final question before you go, Tony. I mean, Benghazi, stronghold for the rebels, stronghold for the opposition. You've been out and about on the streets. I mean, what's the atmosphere like? What are people telling you about what's happening in the country?
Tremendous atmosphere here. I mean, it's basically twofold. I mean, people are really buoyed by what's been going on. They are now determined that they probably have to do this themselves. So they're really, you know, building for the fight, if you like, whatever that may be, wherever that will take them, they want to go there. But also they're coming and they're pouring out their situation, what has happened in the last 42 years. And it's quite astounding. The country with so much oil wealth has given nothing to the people, and the oppression here, the level of oppression has been incredible. So, but people are very determined here. There's no going back. As far as they're concerned, they want to continue until the end, whatever that may be.
All right, Tony Bertley there in Benghazi. Tony, thank you very much indeed. Now, the Obama administration is under increasing pressure to impose a no-fly zone over Libya, but so far it's ruled out getting involved in any military action. Well, earlier we spoke to Zbigniew Brzezinski, a former national security advisor to the Carter administration. He says the US should play a more strategic role.
We are not destined, nor should we be, to act as the sole policeman of the world, whether it is in our interest or it is not. I think we have to judge each case on its merits. But in this particular case, I do think that some greater but indirect involvement would send the right message and move events in Libya in the right direction. I think the deployment of ships right off the shores of Tripoli would in itself send an important message. If it was tied also to the possible unilateral evacuation of Westerners, it would send a stronger message. And all of that would be an indication to the very uncertain and divided Libyan military that it is not in their interest to be supporting Gaddafi.
Zbigniew Brzezinski talking to us earlier there. Let me just give you some breaking news we're getting here. Staying with Libya, our correspondent inside the country is now telling us that there have been fresh airstrikes in the Ras Lanuf area. That's fresh airstrikes in the Ras Lanuf area. We'll obviously try and get an update on that latest situation as soon as we can. Well, joining me in the studio for more assessment is Tariq Youssef, Dean at the Dubai School of Government. He's also Libyan, hailing from the city of Benghazi. Tariq, let's just talk about this issue of air superiority. We were just listening to Mr. Brzezinski there, the former national security advisor to the Carter administration, talking about this issue of the no-fly zone. And this obviously pulls in this very important issue of air superiority. We've seen Libyan warplanes bomb rebel positions. Is this a case of whoever controls the skies controls the situation on the ground?
Possibly, but that assumes capability within the Libyan military that we don't have a good assessment for. But it seems to me, and I think Brzezinski was reflecting possibly on this lesson from the Gulf War, allowing Saddam Hussein to fly his helicopter gunships and brutalize the populations that were in open unrest helped essentially quell the unrest at great cost to the Iraqis. The conventional wisdom that followed from that suggested that, in fact, this should not have been allowed to happen, and that this should not be allowed to happen in the future in any context where a dictatorship is trying to hold on to power and is resorting to instruments of repression, including helicopter gunship and air superiority. But we don't know really if the Libyan military is capable of essentially exploiting whatever air superiority it has to quell the kind of resistance that is emerging without potentially inflaming world opinion and forcing the outside powers to act decisively. So it seems to me Gaddafi is going to be testing the resolve and the will of the international community soon. He's doing it possibly, he did it in the last couple of days, he might be doing it more in the next few days. Will the outside world react? Will they deploy the naval assets they have at their disposal to send the message that Brzezinski was precisely reflecting on?
Are we, I mean, you know, I was just saying that we were just getting reports of these fresh airstrikes in Ras Lanuf. Let's just talk to our correspondent in Libya for a second, Tariq. We'll come back to you. Hoda, our correspondent in Libya, what more can you tell us about these latest airstrikes, Hoda?
Well, we just heard a loud explosion about 5 to 10 minutes ago From what we're told, this was an airstrike over a military base on the outskirts of Ras Laffan. And this has been a pattern, really, of the Libyan Air Force striking on military bases and rebel positions. Now, I heard your guest talking before about testing the resolve of the international community and the people. I think that all these airstrikes and this fighting only increases the resolve, at least of the volunteers and the army here on the ground. I can tell you that we've seen many this morning who are sort of grouping and organizing themselves, because they say that now they're going to take their fight all the way to Sirte, which is the hometown of Muammar Gaddafi.
Hold on, what's the situation now? I mean, what are people saying given these fresh airstrikes?
Well, at the moment, I have to tell you, they're not extremely worried. We are hearing very heavy gunfire. We are, just to explain to you, we're on a road, the main road, really, that links all the cities and towns here. The airstrike was on a military base, which is by the side of the road. There is a heavy sandstorm as well, so I can't tell you exactly in which direction it's being the shooting is going now. But by and large, people are not extremely worried about the airstrikes, at least the armed rebels I'm standing with, because they say that so far it's always been on these military bases.
All right, Hoda Abdelhamid there reporting on those fresh airstrikes in Ras Laffan. Hoda, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring in back Tariq Youssef here in the studio. Tariq, we were talking earlier about both sides perhaps not being strong enough militarily to make a decisive outcome now. Are we starting to see the momentum slow down, perhaps?
We are. The element of time is not in the interest of everyone, and possibly not, especially in the interest of Gaddafi. The more the outside, the international community views its options, comes up with a game plan as to how to handle any escalation of violence from his side, the more time the opposition in the East is given opportunity to consolidate its gains and perhaps start thinking strategically, is not in the interest of them. But at the same time, Gaddafi will have time to regroup, to replenish his forces. And we're getting reports right now about reinforcements being sent to the city of Zawiya as we speak to try to quell the unrest there.
Tariq, let's just talk through these live pictures here which we're seeing. These are from Benghazi. We know that pro-Gaddafi forces hit an ammunition dump in Benghazi earlier on today. We're seeing crowds now gather. I mean, you hail from Benghazi. You lived in Tripoli, but you hail from Benghazi. Just talk us through what we're seeing here now.
This is one of the important landmarks of Benghazi. This is now being referred to as the Tahrir Square of Benghazi in some sense. Open funerals for martyrs who had fallen in the last couple of days. We've seen prayers, a Friday prayer yesterday attracted upwards of 30,000 people. That's a substantial segment of Benghazi's population. I think this demonstration of collective resolve at every level, including in the act of carrying bodies through a funeral, is sending a message both to